So in today's episode, I'm joined by Pam Donaldson, who is the VP of Community Development at Gordon Highlander. We talked about what it really takes to grow in this industry, from second guessing yourself in meetings to learning how to speak up even when your voice shakes. Pam opens up about the lessons she's learned the hard way, the power of curiosity, and why your mindset can make or break your career in construction. Let's get into it. Pam, welcome to the CPC. Thank you very much for coming on. It's great to have you.
Thank you, Jamie. I'm super pumped about being on this podcast today. Thank you.
Superb. Well, look, perfect. As we said, look, we'll get some conversation going, find out a little bit more about your story, and I'm sure that the listeners are gonna love it. So probably best to just jumpstart in by firing some questions at you. So look, the one thing we like to do here is almost kind of find out your origin story as such, like what kind of drew you in. So, let's start at the beginning. How did you get into construction? Was there something specific that kind of drew you in?
Well, no. Interesting story. I won't go into all the details, but about at age 32, I walked away from a business and partner in my life. Needed to completely start over. And I had a friend that referred me to a general contractor and said, "Hey, they're looking for someone." And I was like, "Okay." And I wasn't sure if I had the skills or not in the path business that I ran. And so I walked in, they hired me, and the rest is history. It's kind of funny. I fell in once I got in really at the ground level, right? Um, I knew I wouldn't be there long. Um, Coming from being a business owner and then really, I mean, it was very humbling. I mean, literally at that time in my life, I was very humbled and just trying to, you know, start over. And so I loved the people. I fell in love with construction because of the people. And I knew that this was an industry that I felt like I could thrive in.
Yeah.
And so that's how it started.
That's always the way, isn't it? I think it's typical. It's not always not a typical story. I think we tend to get a variety of different stories of people that really desperately wanted to get into construction, other people that have that origin story of family owning a business beforehand, and people like yourself. Strangely enough, there's a large number of people, even clients of ours, that just they kind of fall into construction from doing something previously to to ultimately kind of just trying something new, and obviously that's for yourself. So I mean, you've been in now for what, 2 decades? I think you've been in
28
construction.
years this year.
Wow, you look fantastic, absolutely fantastic. I think I look older than the pair of us, to be fair. And that's but you've come from what's doing a kind of senior PM role all the way through now to executive leadership, right? You've done various different roles. So what would you say has been the most defining period so far of your career?
So yeah, we talk about I started really at ground up in this industry. Again, not knew I wouldn't be there long. Once I realized that I was going to stay in the industry, I set myself a goal of saying, "Hey, I want to go into the project management career path of this." There's so many different roles for especially women in construction, but and all of them are valuable and important. I feel I laugh. I said I've served in every role from from office manager to pre-con construction coordinator to and I did all of that, and it was so important for me to learn all of that though too, because you need all of that. I mean, I feel like I'm very well versed and
Yeah.
well rounded in what we do, right? And coming in from the administrative side, I really understood all the the really important details and management of construction, not particularly building. I had to learn that later with help from others. But yeah, so all the roles, I set a 5-year goal to be a project manager. I had people that believed in me in that company and wanted to invest in my career. They saw something in me, so they helped me go through classes. I started taking night classes, and I just will shout out. There's a lot of trade schools partnering with community colleges that do offer. I just want to share this with some of your listeners that they do offer construction management courses, estimating methods, all the things that you would need to get a job in construction industry. I just tell people, I'm not saying I'm not against degrees. I love them, but the way I came in was this way, and there's not college is not for everybody, but there are these places like the Construction Education Foundation in Dallas, and they partner with North Lake College that really helped me learn a lot more in depth and blueprint reading and understanding construction and all the things that went with it. I mean, I will say all of that helped. The biggest thing that I learned is I just jumped in and absorbed and um, learned from others, looked up to other role models. I absorbed everything I could get my hands on. My dad always told me, Pam, if you can read and you can understand what you're reading, you can teach yourself to do anything.
Yeah.
Uh,
That's that, that's a great way to look at things, I think, because a lot of people kind of doubt themselves that
yes.
they can't do things right. There's very much a can't than a can do attitude, it seems, in society at the moment, and that's something that a lot of people should take from that statement there that your father passed down to you is spot on. Really, if you can read something, you can teach yourself how to do it, and that you're testament to that you've not come through the traditional kind of college route into construction. But from what I see in construction, the beauty of it and what really kind of draws me and gives me that love for construction is it's not a one size fits all. You get people from various different backgrounds that kind of make up this amalgamation of what's such a beautiful industry. And there's no kind of one route in.
No, we have, you laugh because, I mean, so many of our Highlanders, they work for we have our director of operations here in Austin. He was my insurance guy. I still have a policy with his name on it. He came in and said, I want to be a Highlander. And he started in the field and now he's our director of operations for our Austin office. I mean, I had another guy, our VP in Atlanta. He's he was on his way to law school. He was doing an internship for the summer.
Wow.
And he stayed and I mean, it's like construction really just sucks you in.
Yeah.
Once you're in it, you find that you just love it. Every project's different. You meet so many incredible people. I mean, my heart's where the people is. And so anyway, I recommend it to anybody that wants to change their career path just like I did. Um, Start and just work hard and learn everything you can. You can have a lucrative career and rewarding, not just lucrative, but I'm just saying a real rewarding career path in construction industry.
We've had a few guests on that have said that same thing, right? That construction as an industry and as a job really does give you that sense of fulfillment because, and tell me if I'm wrong. I think because you guys, you physically build things, right? You get to see the fruits of your labor, and it's that whole like, I said to somebody previously on another podcast that I paint and decorate in my house, and I put some new paneling up on the wall. And my wife walked in and she was like, "Oh wow!" Once it was finished, it looked fantastic, right? I decorated this room, and you're like, great. And I see that sense of achievement from somebody that's painted a room, right? You build a new hospital or something. You look and you go, that's achievement. So, is that something that you guys tend to see as to kind of really gives you that sense of fulfillment when you see the final project?
Oh yeah. I mean, everyone that works here, everyone in construction, um, we'll all say the same thing. You drive down the road and you can point at a building and say, either I built that or I worked in that building. I did some kind of project there. It, you know, it just gives you that satisfaction of, yeah, like you said, you can see it. You can see these fruits of your labor, right? This comes to fruition and you can go, wow, I had a part in that, right? I got to help with that. And it's
Especially
so,
those like real landmark kind of projects, right? That you get
yes,
involved with something that's, like almost like the heart of a community center, a church, or something
yes,
like that, where it draws people together.
absolutely. Yeah. I was going to say, with that said, one of the best projects that I ever worked with early in my career. I had started to work for a general contractor on the ground up side, and I didn't have any ground up experience. I came in from the tenant finish out side.
Mm.
Okay. So completely different, right? But I wanted to grow, right? I wanted to grow in my career. So I wanted to learn all the things, right? I wanted to have a, wanted to do all of it. And so I started there, and they offered me this project to build a fire station. And I was like, yes, yes, thank you very much. I'll do that. Yes, we'll do this. And I had no clue, right? But I had a great team around me, right? I had this old curmudgeon superintendent that knew construction like the back of his hand. I never knew what he was going to say in a meeting. He was, that was hit or miss. Um, but I learned so much from these people, and um, that were willing to teach me too, right? If you're willing to learn and ask questions, and you don't have to know it all, like we were just talking about. You don't have to know everything, and you shouldn't. You need to be humble enough and teachable enough, um, and you can run the project, right?
Yeah.
It was a great project, and one of the most rewarding things is, like you said, community. Building things sometimes for clients that don't really appreciate. I feel so sorry for our superintendents so much that work their, through the whole thing, and the client does not see all the problems, and we don't want them to, right? We
Yeah.
handle all that for them, and they get the job done, and they have a walkthrough, and somebody sees this little minute paint run. you know,
Yeah, yeah, hold on, what's that? And you sit there thinking, whoa.
and you can just see their face go, and it's like, you
Not
know,
this, not this glorious room that we've built, the small bit of paint. It's
yeah, and
just-
so I tell them, you gotta understand that, but when you work for people, especially like our first responders,
Mm,
building something for a first responder, that they had their fire station was terrible. It was old, it was run down, they had nothing. They were complaining about, the other shifts stealing their food, so we built them individual pantries with locks
oh,
for
wow.
each shift. But we built them the chef's kitchen. They were so humble and proud of it. They're like, "Pam, come over on Saturday. We'll cook you pancakes." I mean, and it was just this joyful project that you knew that everything that we were doing, they appreciated so much, right?
Yeah.
And that was really, really a great time in my career. I loved every minute of it.
Well, kind of get into that, because I know there's questions I want to ask about your kind of your career change and how you've kind of shifted through. So, I mean, you've obviously worn many hats, right? In the time that you've been there, from estimating, operations, business development, and now you're obviously in the community impact space. So, what's the kind of common thread that you think that kind of brings all of those roles together?
Relationships. I don't care. I tell everyone here, whatever role you're in, your business development.
Yeah, yeah. Sales is everywhere, right?
It is. And even though I did not, and it's funny because my boss, Gregor, he'll laugh. He made me VP of sales, and one time I was like, "Man, I hate that term. Like, I'm not a salesperson, And early on, when he I evolved kind of in that role from the project management side and more into the estimating sales side. I wasn't sure about that. Like, that was a really um, struggle for me for a while. My coach had to get me through it, right? Because, well, let me just back up one second. Our mission statement is to build a legacy of helping others reach their God-given potential.
Love that.
Okay. What what our whole culture is about is looking at people, and so many of us think that we're so good at something. It's not that we were bad at it, but this is who we think we are. But having a leader that looks beyond that and sees you for who you are, and really sees your strengths. And he saw my strength was people, like connections and people. And so he threw me into a role that I was like, "No, I don't want to do this." I fought it, like really fought it, and but now I look back and go, "Gosh, yes, this is where I thrive. This is where I'm happiest." Not selling anything, I'm serving you.
Mhm.
I get up every day saying, "Lord, just give me the opportunity, put the people in front of me so that I can serve them today, whatever that looks like. How can I serve you and serve Gordon Highlander, right? How can I be an impact on other people in the community? How can I influence women in the industry?" Um, and And now that I'm, here and I'm even struggling now at turning, I'll be transparent. I just turned 60. So this is a whole new revelation.
Wow.
Um,
Yeah,
and
genuine.
so, we can share a little bit about that later, but it's like, so this whole thing of who do you have to be and what do you have to be? And, um, it's and what role you have to be in. I just say be open to change.
Yeah.
Because every role I've been in has been part of the journey. I've learned so much about it and learned so much about the industry, and I wouldn't trade any of it. From just being the first person that walks in, that you meet at a company, uh, you know, the the greeter, sometimes that's the first person. That's a client walks in or somebody works in. That's the first person they see,
Yeah.
and they
First
want to see
impressions
this.
count, right?
Yeah, they want that, and that kind of just sets the tone, right? And so when you've got somebody there going, "Welcome, come on in,"
I love that. That's one thing I really love about the American culture in comparison to the British. You don't get you don't get that welcoming feeling when you walk into a
Well,
building
come
in
to
the UK.
Texas, Jamie.
Yeah, do you know what we are? Funny enough, we're in the process of setting up an office in Austin, so we'll be out. I'll be out in Austin in the next couple of weeks. So we'll
Oh,
definitely
you
have
have to visit me. You have to visit me.
to, definitely
Yes,
pop in, and you could be that first person to say, "Hey, there you
and I
go,
will.
there
Yep.
you go." So I mean, what was the moment in the industry that you kind of realized that it wasn't a job as such, but I don't want to say the word a calling as such, but was there a moment where you really felt that like it was almost like home for you in the industry, that this was somewhere you were meant to be?
Yeah, I think when you learn, everybody wants to live a life on purpose, right?
Yeah,
And we want to think like, oh, we have to do some fantastic mission work. And I've done some mission work in third world countries, and I think everybody in America should go to one because then they would be appreciative of what you have, right? But as I started moving into my career in construction, I realized that your life on purpose, your impact can be where you are, just where you're sitting today, because that's the plan. My boss always tells this joke. He's like, "You want to make God laugh, tell him your plans." And I just crack up every time he says it. I'm like, yes.
I like that.
Because
Right.
when I try to lead, it doesn't go so well for me. And when I just surrender and say, hey, I would just say anybody. And first of all, I don't want to offend anybody on this podcast. If I'm very authentic about my faith, and so it's part of my story. But I, I don't, and so it's just part of me. It's not who I think other people should be or any of those things. It's just who I
No,
am.
well,
So,
look,
so
being frank, I'm not specifically religious as such,
I'm not
but
religious.
I'm very open minded, and
Yes,
and I think to myself that if somebody's got a faith, whatever it is,
that's
then fair
exactly
play
right.
to you, right? It's something that helps to lead your thought patterns, your life, and gives you purpose. Then fantastic. And I think that at some stage, I might be enlightened, and you never know. It's just that kind of moment. I'm waiting for it. I'm waiting for it to happen. We'll see. Maybe it will come at some stage.
Well,
But
I just think as human beings, we all long for a sense of purpose. And I feel like in a world of chaos and listening to the world tell you who you need to be, who you should be, what you should look like, all those kinds of things,
yeah,
Jamie, I just feel like um, embrace who you are, embrace where you are. You can make the most out of everything. And if you don't like where you are, don't give up. Just
yeah.
keep moving.
Make a change, right? That's it. I think if you don't like where you are, like you say, vote with your feet, get up and move.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've had to change. I tell some of the younger generation that I uh, mentor and speak with. I work for many general contractors over my career. I'm thankful for the first one that gave me a start, right? I didn't leave there particularly because it was a bad company. None of them were. I just didn't feel that my opportunity, my career path was going to move where I wanted it to go.
Yeah,
And so therefore I had to keep making changes, right? And so, until I landed and became a Highlander, and then like it's like, oh my gosh, they're gonna have to kick me out. Uh,
When you say that, I mean, you've been there now, what, 12 plus years,
yes,
and you've obviously, look, you've, as I said, changed the kind of different roles within the business. You're obviously now serving as the VP of community development. What does that role really entail, and how does that kind of connect, your vision with the industry? Because it's a term that everybody can kind of gather what it means to a point, but not
it's
the
so
full
funny
impact.
when we created this title for me. It was funny because the whole goal was, and I'm very proud of this. I'm very proud of this because we're really Gordon Highlander is really a trailblazer in creating a business unit that sole purpose is for the trade partners. Okay, it's like who does that,
Yeah,
you know? And we do. And he will tell you we stand on the shoulders of giants. Without our trade partners as a GC, we are nothing, right? We
yeah,
depend on them and they are our partners. They're not just a subcontractor, they're our partners. That's the trade relations, right? And so when we were discussing, when he reached out to me and said, hey, I really want you to lead this, we're moving into different verticals at Gordon Highlander. We're now moving into other markets. Um, we've had legacy partners that have been with us since day one, and they're still our legacy partners. But at that moment, we realized that we were growing and we were going to need different trade partners in all different verticals in all different markets, right?
yeah,
And it wasn't particularly a one size fits all anymore, Jamie. And so, because our culture is all about relationships and people, um, Greg did not want us going into these new markets and just like blasting out to the masses. He wanted us to intentionally go out and meet people and find our partners, right? And so I'm humbled and honored to be able to lead this um, business unit because it's so important. I know in my journey, especially when I was going to classes and in my growth as a young project manager and estimator, I depended solely on my trade partners. They helped me with my classes. They helped me. I learned so much from them, and I know the value and how we treat them, and it's so important. And so, not only do I can go out and meet people and connect them with our teams, this department also does. A lot of people go, What do you do?" And I'm like, "Well, we do a lot, and we work with IT because we're a small department and a new department." Um, we have built the whole process for our onboarding, how we onboard all of our trade partners. We have a system, our own CRM system for trade partners that all of our invitations to bid go through. And I can track on my phone dashboards that give me all their feedback that I can track them from all their bidding practices, how many losses, how many awards, comparatively how they're doing. I can give them real time feedback. I can give them feedback on the operations side from our team, and then I also go to them and get 360 reviews. Right, I get their feedback for us too, and so it's really awesome because at the end of the day, we have a lot of trusted partners. Okay, and they do well. But my really goal is to have create those people and they become legacy partners, right? They're the people that go to bat with you, they go to battle with you, they are going to help you win work. They're going to help you think outside of the box to save the client time and money. They're going to help us have repeat business, right?
yeah,
And it's really interesting because we do a thing, our I think I mentioned Mandy, she's our new chief people and culture officer. She was our second employee at Gordon Highlander, and her whole heart is about the people. And she leads a lot of programs for us internally, but externally we talk about client centricity, right? And she does a whole workshop in about client, serving the client. But at the end of the day, the full circle is this, right? Gordon Highlander, we serve our client, we serve each other. But if we don't have that trade partner relationship, right? Our clients hire us because we hire good people, right? We hire the
yeah,
people that are like our culture. And when they come in and see that relationship and they see how Our jobs flow because of that trusted partnerships that we have. The experience is it's just a beautiful experience, right? Um, as a general contractor, we're all going to do the same thing. We're all going to build. At the end of the day, we're going to get it done. But it's the experience that makes the difference. And I believe that you're not going to have that experience without the best team. And so
No,
that's
I think that's absolutely fantastic. And I know we obviously when we had a pre-call, you told me a little bit about that story, and I was hoping that that was going to come out. And you were saying that your trade partners helped you in the early days. I remember you told me a lot about that in your night classes and stuff. And I think it's so important, and it's something that's so overlooked in construction. People, as a recruiter, I tend to say that businesses tend to overlook how important their employer brand is, right? About they look at the brand as how it looks to their client, but they don't look at that employer brand. What do people think about your business who will come and work there? That same thing goes specifically for a GC with your trade partners, right? With the subcontractors, because
right.
if you've got a poor reputation in the industry, people aren't going to want to bid on your work. They're not going to work with, you know, John, who's the superintendent, who's an absolute pain in the backside, right? Or cutthroat this and that. They don't want to hear that kind of thing. So it's absolutely magical to hear you say that you guys have set that up to specifically look at that relationship, because it's something that's so overlooked, but also so fundamental in a business's growth and journey. Because having good trade partners is everything for a GC. Because if you don't, how do you deliver what you say you're going to deliver, right?
Yeah. No.
And as you rightfully said there, you said something that's it's not about the destination, it's about the journey, right? And that's the point. At the end, you're going to get to where you need to go. That building will get built for what price and what time. It depends how good your subcontractors are, but having those people on board that genuinely will go to bat for you, I think is key. So that's exceptional. It's something that, do you think that more GCs should be kind of following suit?
I hope so. I really share this story in the market with other GCs. Um, you know, um, one of my team members, Alicia, she was like one day, she goes, "Oh, I don't want to share this because we want to be the ones that are doing this." And I was like, "No, no, no. The biggest compliment is when you have another GC come to you and ask you about what you're doing." And that actually happened to me last year. I had another general contractor that I love and respect, and they actually reached out to me and said, "Hey, what are y'all doing there?" Like I have a person in my company, and she's female, which I think we're some of the best detail oriented women in construction, right? We have our place. Um, and relationships are one of them, right? We're really good at that. And he said, I have a lady that's not really happy in what she's doing and she wants to do something different. She wants to, and I see what you're doing out there. And I've never heard of this role before. And what does that look like? And so I was able to just kind of break that down and unpack that for him and how we got there and what we're doing. And then it's evolving. Jamie, it's constantly evolving. This role is, and it's going to continue. And I hope it does. But yeah, I'm hoping that just even training people to call them trade partners and not
Yeah.
subcontractors. I mean, I know that's industry standard. That's what contracts are written and all those things. But I'm just going to share this really story that just I was in a feedback meeting with one of our legacy partners. And the owner of the company said to me, and he wasn't saying this directly at Gordon Highlander, because if he did, I'd be devastated. But he was just saying in general, he was giving me this heartfelt feedback. And he said, Pam, I just wish general contractors would treat my people like they were human.
That's brutal to hear, right?
That's haunted me ever since that conversation. And I'm like, tell the Highlanders, we really are. I mean, every Highlander that comes into our organization, our CEO, Greg Gordon, does cultural training, right? Yeah. We really want to make sure that I never want to hear that about Gordon Highlander, right? That would just, we should always be caring for others, right? That's one of our core values is for others, right?
Yeah.
And so that goes for our trade partners too, and I've always found that, in my career, I've saw it so much and it just so disheartening when I hear someone, I'm the GC, I'm the boss. You do what I say, my way or the highway. And I'm just like, no, that is not how you build trust. That is
Yeah.
not how you build relationships. As a woman going into the field, if I'd have walked out there and said that, I'd have been laughed off the job site. I would have had no respect. And because I leaned in and asked questions and wanted to genuinely learn and was vulnerable enough to say, I don't know everything. My husband will tell you, you don't want to see a power tool in my hand. But hey, I can read drawings and I can manage schedules and I can manage people. And we're going to all together get this job done and it's going to be amazing, right? It's going to be a huge success.
I love that. I I tell you what, there was something that kind of came up through the research that we've done, and I wanted to ask this because when you've obviously been publicly praised, and I don't know if you've seen this, but you've been publicly praised for your compassion and your people first approach, and it's clear from the couple of conversations that you and I have had, and specifically in this one, that comes across very clearly. What does it mean to lead with your heart in an industry that often is kind of very process driven? Because let me read you this quote from somebody put out. I think it was on your 10-year anniversary. It was put on one of the socials. I think it was Facebook.
Are you going to make me cry, Jamie?
I'm going to try. Pam Donaldson puts her heart into everything she does. Her love and compassion for the community and others knows no bounds. How does that make you feel?
Well, I give all praise to God for that because it's not me. That's a gift that he's given me. And if if that's an impact that I'm there, if I'm leaving that with someone, then I'm doing the will that I'm supposed to. I'm doing what I'm supposed to. I'm leading my life on purpose, and that's the goal. So yes, it
That's
warms
one.
my heart.
I saw it and it warmed my heart because I believe in a concept. I don't know if you've ever read a book called "The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People" by Stephen
Yes,
Covey,
yes,
and there's a part in there, isn't it, about you start with the end in mind, and that whole chapter of you're walking into a funeral parlor and family, friends, etc., and it's you. And the whole point of it is that what would you want people to say about you? Because at the end of the day, that's all we have. And as the rappers are saying these days, get the roses while you can still smell them. That's pretty much there, right? That's what you're getting. And to see that, it must warm your heart because it's a beautiful sentiment for colleagues and people that are around you to say those things about you. And clearly, why your bosses, I think, decided that you're the right person to be in that community space because clearly, you encompass all of that. So, fair play to you. I didn't want to kind of make you cry or anything down that road, but I think it's something that comes across so clearly in your personality. I wanted to share that because it's a beautiful thing, and you don't tend to see that much in construction. To be brutally honest, it's
well, to
lovely.
be selfish, that's what serving others brings me joy.
Yeah.
I mean, I think people, that's a thing we all struggle with too. I mean, it's on a daily basis of surrender of saying, you know, try to not think about self, right?
Mm,
If I get up every day with the attitude of serving others, how can I serve today? Then I'm not worried about, oh, what's somebody going to think of me or what is this? Or I'm comparing myself to someone else or doing all these things like me, self.
yeah.
I'm serving others, right? And when you do that, I mean, that's where you get your joy. Like that's what makes me so happy. That's what makes my cup runneth over, right? It's when I can serve somebody and see them um, elevate someone, um, help someone when their career path. I mean, that's the whole goal right now for me is just looking into the next generation and trying to fill this seat, right?
Yeah.
Who's going to be this? Who's going to do what I'm doing? And I hope that that's in your legacy term that's what you're always should be doing as a leader is trying to find your replacement, right?
Yeah.
You you're that succession plan and investing in those people because and I'll tell you one of my favorite quotes and I'm going to butcher it but um um gosh um I can't even think of it right now. I'm going to just tell the quote. You'll know who it is. Maya Angelou. Um, and it's on my digital vision board. I have a digital vision board that I look at every day that has all my things, and it says at the end, people are not going to remember what you did, and they're not going to remember what you said, but they're going to remember how you made them feel.
Feel.
Right?
It's a beautiful quote. I love that one.
It's so it's so amazing. And when I listened to that, I thought she's so right.
Mm.
We spend all this time going, oh gosh, trying to not live our authentic self and be who we are, um, instead of just embracing people and welcome them and making people feel um, that they're okay, that we're all okay in this crazy world.
It is. It is a crazy world. It's crazy at the moment, and construction is a crazy industry, right? The
Yes.
stories stuff that you hear out there. So, I think the fact that you guys and you specifically are really kind of pushing this agenda is something that's really important. We've had other guests on where we've talked about like the mental health capacities and physical and mental health issues in construction, and you know although it's not necessarily a direct look at the mental health side of construction, what you're doing certainly helps to negate some of those problems by being that kind of port of call for your trade partners and ensuring that you're working with the right people, and it will negate tensions and stresses and strains, which ultimately leads to that. So although it's not necessarily a direct
Right.
part of what you do, you mentioned that whole 360, and it's amazing how everything becomes intertwined in what you do, and I think that's, yeah, it's key, and I think it's something that I'm probably going to try and steal and sell it as my own, as what other GC should be doing.
Do it. Do
Well,
it.
I'm just gonna, we'll write that one down. We'll get that from the producer. We'll write that one down. Yeah, just community. I can feel it coming now. Well, look, continuing along this line, because there's something else I wanted to ask. I mean, you do a lot of community work outside of business. Is that correct? So
Yeah.
where does that what motivates you to do that? Because what came first, the chicken or the egg? Was it the role that you did within the business that kind of led to that? Or have you always been, and I can almost guarantee the answer, have you always been somebody that's been quite heavily involved in community, and that's kind of led you into the kind of type of role that you're doing?
Well, again, people person. And I'll just transparent. I grew up a Southern Baptist preacher's kid. That says a lot about me, right? I'm a PK. I was in trouble. Um, um, but a natural born leader, always expected to greet the people in the church. I'm a hugger. I think I got that from back then because that's what we did, right? You needed to be the example always, and welcome people in. Always at a young age, hosting children and community was just part of my life. And then, as far as in the construction industry, I really, um, and you talk about this, or we talked about that before about um, what you wish you had back in the day. What I wish I had back in the day, and I don't want to say a whole lot about it. It's fact. This is a male-dominated industry, but it's still. I hate to just continue to beat that drum. There's a lot of women in construction now and men that support that wholeheartedly. Like I have all the people that in my life that helped my career were wonderful men that helped me in this industry, right? I couldn't be here without them. And so I get kind of, sometimes I just go, oh gosh, it's, yes, I want more women to come in and I want it to welcoming, but I don't want it to always be like, oh, it's this male dominated industry, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And I hate that. Like I hate that so bad. But anyway, so we're on our ninth year. 9 years ago, several women, it was eight of us actually, we all served in other women's organizations, and and some of those organizations were national, and you had to have like a criteria. You had to have a certain title with an own business, or you had to be an executive or whatever, and you had to have a certain percentage of that. And we were like No, I mean, I want something for the ladies in my office that are coming up in their career path to
Mm.
be able to find mentorship, to be able to find professional development, right? Leadership skills, all those things. And so we founded a Association of Professional Women in Construction 9 years ago in Dallas, um, for that reason. So we wanted to incorporate anyone in and around construction. So we have women trade partners, we have women in commercial real estate, we have women industry professionals, insurance, if you sell to,
Mm.
consulting firms, engineering firms, architect firms. It's very diverse. And what I love about that is that I've got I mean, multitudes of people, connections in my pocket. I'll can be anywhere and go, oh, I need to connect somebody. I'm like, gotcha. I got you. Like,
Yep.
I've got a connection for you, right? And so it's really diverse, and it's more of a um I always call it like more of a boutique women's organization, and I like that because we can really um it's a safe space
Yeah.
for us to help one another and share our stories and share our experiences, and then also invest in the next generation, right? And welcome those ladies that are coming in, and except they're so much more bold than I am. I'm going, whoa, I I love this next generation. They're like, hey, I want this. I'm gonna get it. This is what I'm doing, and I laugh. I'm like, I would have never said that. Keep your head down and work hard.
Yeah. That's the way it was. That is just the way it was.
Oh, it was. There was work-life balance. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, exactly. Construction is something that's changed drastically. I
It
mean,
has.
I've been in recruitment, well, construction recruitment for the best part of about 16, 17 years. And I think that it's something when I first started, it was very much that, we need somebody that's going to come in and knuckle down and stuff. And now it's like, we need somebody that comes in and it's, 4 days a week, but we give them half day here and they can bring their dog to work and they can do it. And you're like, whoa, and that's great in some aspects, but others, it's like, we're seesawing and going from one space to the other. I think we sometimes can be a little bit too airy fairy with work in general.
In
And that kind
construction,
of
it's
needs,
a little harder, like, that because
yeah.
we have deadlines and you're driven by the deadline, right? Um, Time is money.
The client
Um,
doesn't care. Yeah, at the end of the day,
yeah.
right? They need it
And
done.
so I feel like, to help bring balance, the work still has to get done.
Mm.
But being an employer that builds teams around the project, so it's not just one person, right? Um, Back when I started Gordon Highlander, I was like the 10th employee, and we ate what we killed. You got the work, you bid it, you know, you ran it through the whole process. There was no assistant, there was nobody helping. You did it all, and you worked some crazy hours back then, and so developing those teams and really realizing that that's how you need to get it done, and it really helps people because when you're burnout, you're no good to anybody. I mean, it, you things are going to start falling through the cracks, and it's just no good. I mean, people start talking about if your cup's not full, if you're not taking care of you, and that's part of the mental health
Mm.
aspect of that, right? um if you're not filling your cup, then you're no good to anybody. You're not good to your employer, you're not good to the company, your family.
Yeah,
You
you just become a shell of yourself, right?
know, and so long we had this mentality, Jamie, that you couldn't do that, right? I had that mentality. You got to work hard, 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 and after that you work harder. And I lost a lot of relationship through my career because career always came first.
Yeah.
My family, my kids will tell you too, like, oh, God, mom's a workaholic, right? I used to be called that, and it's like, but I was, trying to build a career, um, and that wasn't easy. And, but I realize now that if I'd have, you know, um, if I'd, I think one of the biggest, mistakes that I've made through the journey, and I know I digress a little bit, I kind of go all over the place, but is not asking for help. To sit down on an island, afraid of not knowing something or afraid of in fear of looking inferior
Mm.
and suffering in silence all those years, right? When I could have just, asked for help, or that you get respect, really and truly, you gain more respect from your superiors and your leaders by doing that
Yeah, and being
than
on.
suffering in silence and dropping balls
Yeah,
and things not going well. So I encourage anyone coming again, just lean into people, lean into the experts, lean into, don't suffer in silence. And the fact is, you don't know it all and you're never going to.
and
I-
do you feel, Pam, that was, I don't want to kind of keep pushing onto the whole kind of female in construction situation, but obviously, look, naturally, I know you're part of the program that you are with the other ladies as well, right? Do you find that was because maybe that you were a female in a male dominated area, that
Absolutely.
you didn't want to seem like you didn't know what you felt you should know, so you didn't want to kind of raise your hand and look stupid?
That's exactly right. I mean, it, and the reality is, you don't have to. I walked into conference rooms with presidents and CEOs and architects, and they would ask, and I took over a job from another PM that left, and I had no clue, but I didn't let them know that I had no clue. You know what? I said, "I'll get back to you. That's a great question, and I want to do some research on that, and I'll get back to you." And I learned through that little season that that's what you need to do. You don't have to know everything, and they don't really expect you to. What they do expect you to do is to say, "Hey, I'm
Gonna
going to
get
get the
someone
answer
else.
for you. Yeah, I expect you to get the answer from me.
Yeah.
I expect you to get the solution." And so that whole season in my career really taught me, being in that, uh, out of my comfort zone of what I knew in the back of my hand, but in another industry part of construction that I didn't know at the back of my hand and was just learning, that saying things like that. So you're still, hey, I'm still a leader. I'm still going to get it done. But I'm going to go find those experts for you, and I'm going to pull this together, and I'm come back, and you're going to get the result you need. And I think that's what we as women in construction have to understand, that we can do that, right?
And do you,
And even men don't know it all.
no,
None
no,
of us do.
no. I mean, no. Going to a sport analogy, right? I like rugby. It's not a massive thing in the US, but I know it's growing. But I watch like international rugby where England are a pretty highly respected team, and they're asking the ref for rules. Because things are you don't know everything. Even as a professional player, they don't know the rules.
We don't.
And it's the same principle in business. I live by a mantra that every day is a school day. You don't know what you don't know, right? And how can you be expected to? The only way you're going to know that is if you ask the question and be open to the fact of engaging that information. And I think that people sometimes, and we've all been, we all probably do it at times. We hide our real self away by, oh yeah, yeah, don't worry, I can do that for you. Yeah, yeah, I know that, because you feel that you're going to look stupid. Whereas I think where you're going to look stupid is if you do it wrong without having asked the question.
That's exactly right.
And do you find that that's changed a little bit now with more women being in construction? You feel that there's a bit more, I don't say the word empowerment because it's not the right word, but they feel a little bit more settled in the space, so they're happy to ask those questions? Or do you feel that there's still some work to go on that?
No, I really do. I mean, even though women, we're still 11.5%. I was getting on Chat GPT this morning, getting my statistics. Again, every day's a school day. I'm going to use that. Every day's a school day. I just figured that out the other day. Um,
I use
but
it. I use it like my diary. It's my best mate.
my new assistant, right?
Yeah.
Um, Even though there's a small amount, I think that the women that are coming in, um, trailblazers,
Yeah.
that women in construction that have come in and paved the way, and that are willing to give back and
Mm.
invest. So that's the key. That's how that keeps that knowledge coming in, so saying that, you don't have to be this, like I said, if I had have known all of that coming in, it would have been a less hard, right?
Yeah.
So you want to give that back. You want to give that knowledge back, and also just educating. Getting into the industry and allowing men in the male dominated industry realize what your gifts are, right? You come in and you show them different ways to do things, or you have a different approach or a different perspective, and um they start seeing the value, right?
Yeah.
And the whole thing about that is us learning from each other to create this really wonderful industry, right? And it takes all of us, right?
Yeah.
It takes
It
all of us to do it. And so I think when we start seeing, um yes, everybody has a role, everybody has titles, but I just feel like, I lead totally with team approach. And I think that my career has taught me that, that's how you lead. You're not a dictatorship. You don't know it all. You're
yeah.
never going to. And you're more successful when you are listening to others. You may have a vision, but they may have a better, and you may have a way that, my OCD goes in and says, no, you got to do it this way, and it's like, I love it because Alicia will come up to me and she'll say, why don't we do it this way? And I said, well, or why are you doing it this way? And I'm like, because we've always done it that way. This is how I was taught. She's like, but yeah, but that's not smart. That doesn't mean it's right. And then I looked at her and I said, you're right. Let's do it different. What do you think?
Well,
And
you got to go with that the Plato rule, haven't you? I think someone said that to me before. Plato, the economist, is the 80-20 rule. You kind of you listen 80% of the time and speak 20, because the reality is, I think people that do it the other way around, they're never going to learn much. Maybe the sound of their own voice. That's about it. And I think you do learn so much more when you listen. I think that's the only way that you are going to grow. So a question I've got then: what kind of support systems do you think that would make a really big difference to help women that are coming in at the moment? Because look, regardless of what we say, like you say, the stats are what they are, and there are still some challenges with women in construction, right? That's just the way it is in certain parts of it. What systems or support systems would you think would make the biggest difference to help women thrive in construction?
so I think, again, companies that want to invest in women in construction, right? They're going into career fairs. We're even starting in middle school, right? Going in and just, I went to a career fair, and I'll just share this story. I've said it many times. It's so funny, but I just laugh. So I had one little girl, she walks up and she says, yeah, she said, I don't want to wear a tool belt. And I'm like, "Man, you don't have to, honey. I don't wear a tool belt."
We all do different jobs. I'm not sitting with a hammer and a
And
chisel.
and I think people, I think, like you said, people fall into this because they don't know the vast opportunities in and around construction, right, Jamie?
Yeah.
You can be anything. And letting them know. So I had one little girl said, I want to be an architect. I said, fine. We have architects. I know them. We'll find somebody to mentor you, right? And another little girl, I think she wanted to be an engineer. I was like, perfect. Yes, got one of those. One little girl comes up and she goes, I want to run a jackhammer.
That's good for you.
And I went, yes.
Take her out.
Yes.
Right now.
I love you. You should do it. You absolutely should do it. I feel like women should do it. When I see a woman with a tool belt on, there was just one in my building the other day and I stopped her. It's like, I love you. Like, I love what you're doing. Like, that's not my gift. That's your gift. That's your passion. And I love that she's out there in the field in a tool belt. She's an electrician doing it, just doing it, man. And women superintendents in the field, we've got some at Gordon Highlander. I just love them. It's not my gift. It's their gift. Right. And they do a great job at it. They do a great job at it. And so that always excites me. But I think investing in them, and I think women, we have to educate. I mean, with anything to bring change comes education. And we have to educate, the mindset of the construction industry and how our culture is evolving.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the cultural aspect of it's key as well, right? Even for parents, at a young age. Because as you were saying something, I sat there thinking to myself, what would my mindset be if my daughter picked up a tool belt rather than, I know it's going to sound very sexy, and it's not meant to sound sexy, like a dolly, right? Because and I'll kind of go full circle. My boys, I've got 3 sons, and my oldest boy is nearly 7, and he picked up a doll and started playing with it. And straight away, my mum was like, "Oh, where's the football? Kick the football around." And I sat there and thought, my wife's like, "Just let and just let him be." And then I was just like, "It's a good point. Like, why does that bother me?" And it's that kind of cultural kind of inception of a man should be a man and kick a ball around and play with soldiers and smash things up and cars. And it's like, well, really? Or is it just a playful young mind that wants to explore different things?
Exactly.
And he doesn't play football or any sports really at the moment. Bit of karate, but he
And
loves
that's
Lego.
okay. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
okay.
be you, right? And I think if he wanted to be a ballet dancer, then great, fair play to you. If he wanted to go into construction, then the same, vice versa. And I think that's something from a cultural perspective that we need to kind of maybe accept, that these precasts we've got of a woman and a man, certainly in terms of job role, probably need to just be shattered a little bit and moved
Yeah,
around.
there shouldn't be a defining whatever gender you are, you can have that role, right?
Yeah,
I mean, it's not just
and for the job, right? At the end of the
yeah, it's
day,
the best person for the job. It doesn't
yeah,
yeah, it's and it's that person's passion and what they love and what they love to do, right? You
yeah.
know, if we did more of that instead of trying to stick a square peg in a round hole or vice versa, we'd be a lot better off in society, right?
Hmm.
um Society says you've got to be this, you've got I mean, and I laugh. I did an article the other day with DBJ, and I at the end of it said, we've come a long way, baby. That's the old Virginia Slim slogan. By the way, I've smoked a few of those back in my day. Not proud of it, uh but I laugh because we have, there's still, when you look at the percentages, you go, wow, that's not a lot. But then I see so many, like at Gordon Highlander, like we've got about 20% of women in our company in various roles, from support roles to our chief public and culture officer. I mean, she's part of the executive team, which is super exciting. And and Mandy's story kind of was like mine in her career, and to see that for her, and her to be able to say, hey, this is possible for you too, right? This is, hey, hey,
Yeah.
next generation, you can do this too. You can be anything you want to. And segue into that, I did want to mention this too today, just because I think it's important. She also handles our or runs a program called Reach at Gordon Highlander. Again, we talk about that mission statement, right?
Yeah.
How do you reach that God-given potential? And so we have a program called Reach, and I'm very proud of that. Along with the Trade Relations Department, I'm very proud of our Reach program, because it's actually educating people in our company and saying, hey, you may start, you're sitting in this role right now, but what do you want to do? What pathway do you want? Right? What is it? Um, we've had women that came in more of a support to a project manager role, and now they're in executive accounting, or they've come in that role and they decided, oh, hey, we want to be more in our public and culture, people and culture. We don't call it HR anymore. It's the PAC team. I love that too. Um,
I love
and
that. Americans love an abbreviation and
we
three
do, and we like, yeah, yeah,
letters.
community development. Like, I love that.
I love it.
Yeah, yeah, and it's like people and culture, and so she's part of that team, right?
Yeah.
And so we have people, going into all different. We just had a superintendent that came in, and now he said, hey, I think I want to go into the estimating path. We're training him to be in pre-con now, right? So wherever you start, we launch a career path. Hey, what do you want to do? And we start helping them get there.
Well, that's a great idea, because ultimately you're pushing people into, or you're allowing people to go into something where they feel a pull, right? And I think there's something I always hear on another podcast, Diary of a CEO. The host always says, Are you the driver of the car, or are you being driven? Right? Is it kind of your calling, or is it you that's making that decision? And I think that ultimately it's the same thing. If you're a superintendent, but you really feel that, I could be so good on the estimating side because I feel like that's where I could get in and push that pre-con development, and not, then why not? Because ultimately, if you can support that person once they become established in it, would feel so empowered in that position and so grateful for it that they would likely perform better than somebody who's a good estimator on paper but doesn't want to be there.
Right.
Yeah, it's great. It's some really good stuff that you guys are doing to kind of just change things up a little bit and make things a bit more appealing, to everybody in the business, which is great.
Well, and I'm seeing it change. I mean, Gordon Highlander, I love everything that we're doing. I love our culture. I love all of it. But I am seeing, like, I'm not going to say we're the only ones doing it because we're not. And that's exciting to me when I see, like, the company that reached out to me and said, "Hey, what are you doing? I see y'all are doing something different over in trade relations. What is that about?" They're also a company that if I wasn't a Highlander, I would be working for them because they have that same culture, that
Mm.
same love for their people, that same support. And I just feel like culturally it's changing. It's going to continue to change. Um, our, it demands it, right? We don't think that way anymore. And the
Yeah.
next generation definitely doesn't think that way anymore, right? And so, and they've taught me a lot too, just the stereotypes and just the things that we've broken that needed to be broken. you know,
Be the
and
change, as they say, right?
do what?
Be the change, as they
Be the
say that.
change. And, I think just, you think about how can it starts with you,
Mm.
Jamie. Be the light, be a smile that changes somebody's outlook of their day.
Yeah.
It's small little things. We don't have to change the world, but if you do it and I do it and so and so forth, it'll eventually change. It'll make a big impact. It's that ripple effect, right? Uh,
No,
I do
agreed.
it.
If you if you could sum up kind of your leadership style in one word, I know it's difficult to say that. What would it be and why?
I'd just say collaborative. We
Mm.
talked about it, bringing all the voices to the table.
Yeah, I think so.
Um,
And making sure that, yeah, because it creates a much broader picture when you've got inputs from different people, right? Allowing everybody that opportunity to say their piece, you
you,
create a
you,
much clearer picture.
yeah, I read a book. I've done all the personality tests. It's so funny, and um, but one of them that I really loved, it's called The Five Voices. I don't know if you've ever read that or not, but I'll send you a link.
Yeah, please.
Um, but in that book, it really talks about the five voices, and the ultimate thing is you want all the it. And I was sitting there as I'm listening to it, just going, "Oh, that's our CEO, that's our COO, that's doing, labeling all the people." But really and truly, when I got to the CEO, I was like, gosh, he he has a little bit of all the voices, right? And that's where you want to be. You want to have all the voices at the table, but ultimately, we all want to have just a little bit of all the voices because that way we can see all the perspectives. We're coming together as a team. Um, and we're going to be successful, more successful that way, right? And it's
Yeah,
important that we recognize who we are, what voice we are predominantly, but also look towards understanding all the other voices at the table. And I feel like it's really important that we're diverse that way because you don't want people of all like minds sitting, on a board or on a team.
well, you don't want
I
to
want
surround yourself with yes people, right? I think, and
right.
that are just going to constantly tell you that you're right. Oh, yes, 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 yes. Because
Yeah,
where's the challenge? There's no challenge to inspire new thought process,
that's right.
and yeah.
Yeah.
I've got a couple of some questions on kind of the future that you see in the legacy within construction. So, what do you really see as the opportunities that are going to emerge in certainly in the Texas construction space over the next 5 or 10 years, particularly in the community-based or people-centered projects? What do you see as the kind of the emerging emerging parts in that
Well, I
area.
think I talked about this the other day, and it's just the hot topic, right? AI.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, "Oh God, it's scary," and I'm like, "Yeah, well, it is. It is somewhat, but so is the internet." I mean, when it first came out, I mean, it can be used for good and it can be used for nefarious purposes, but we try to use it for good. And the reality is, it's here. It's not coming. It's here. And with that, I was just in a summit on about AI for Crew, our commercial real estate women organization, and they had a speaker that was talking about, and just going back to women, pathway career paths for women. You know, no one really knows AI yet. So really leveling the playing field for women in construction, if you want to jump on that train,
Yeah, that's gonna change it up completely now.
you're gonna advance so more quickly. The people that can embrace it and use it. We're seeing drones being used like never before in all kinds of ways, and ways that where you don't have to put a person on this 50-story building to look for safety issues and things. I mean, we're using it for that. And um and I just see, I'm going to a um, um, what am I trying to think, an event that I was invited to, and it's about uh, robot cranes and construction equipment. And I'm like, oh, I can't wait to go. Like, I can't wait to see this. I'm
Yeah, the
super pumped
excitement.
about
Yeah,
it.
and
And
that's it. I think is that embracing it, embracing the technology change, and thinking, "Well, this will make things." I think everybody's scared of losing their jobs, and rightfully so. I get that, but if you look at, and I heard just this morning that there's net positive on all technology changes throughout history, because you just got to upskill and change, and you rightfully said there. Certainly to drive that number of women in construction is to kind of upskill yourself on AI, because that, you said rightfully, it's not the future, it's here. It's what is happening, and it's going to continue to drive. What's the kind of key habit that you would like to see in the industry removed, if you could just, what's one thing, a mindset or a habit that you would like to just see eradicated?
well, again, the way we treat our trade partners, I'd love to see that change. I'd like
Yeah.
to see all contracts saying trade partners now, not subcontractors. Um, um, and also, um, just for our industry too, like I said, to embrace women in construction. Um, there's no fear in that. We have a place here, and we bring value and benefit, and not to all roles. Where some we don't want. you know, some we do, but that stereotype again, just erasing stereotypes and embracing anyone that wants to come into this industry, um, and helping them. If you love this industry, I feel like the mentality is that you help whoever it is learn the industry, like, and be successful in it, and just more welcoming in in that in that way.
Makes
So,
complete sense. And so, I know we touched on this already. Legacy. What legacy do you hope to leave behind, both at Gordon Highlander and in the broader construction industry? What's Pam Donaldson's? What's your legacy that you wish to
they're
leave behind?
not going to remember me, but if
Yes, they will.
they do, I hope it's that um I believed in others
Mm,
and helped elevate them.
beautiful. And I'll tell you what. In closing, we always ask the same question to every guest. We call it the magic wand time, right? So, if you had a magic wand and you could change one thing overnight in construction that would have the greatest impact on the industry, what would it be?
Well, again, I think we said it, just changing the mind shift
Mm,
on, again, on a given whole, just this again. And I think and I'm probably taking this from Ben Thomas. That was just on your last podcast, because I loved what he said. He was like open mindedness, the same, doing the same thing over and over. Yes, it may have worked in the past, but we're in a new decade. We're in the what is it? The technology revolution, right? And all of that mindset's going to have to change. And so I really would say for you to stay in it. I mean, someone like me, that just turned 60, I'm sitting there going, how can I continue to be relevant? How can I continue to bring value and benefit? Um, because I'm going to be open minded. I'm going to embrace it. And and that's how we're going to succeed. So I would say again, to change, you're going to have to be open minded and you're going to have to embrace it. So
Perfect. I think it's the only way to be. I think it's, anybody that's not is going to get left behind. I think, to be honest, Pam.
it's
Well,
true. The days of the handwritten facts gone.
those days are over. AI is coming. Pam, you've been an absolute star and a privilege to have on in this conversation. It's been wonderful speaking to you. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Jamie. Thank you for having me. I'm honored to be on your program. Thank you.